Okay,
We
what
are
people to get on
live.
though? I see him piling in. We are at 15, now we're at 26, 27,
Yeah.
29.
More than my YouTube following.
Everybody follow Cheryl on YouTube.
I got
But
five
actually, you should.
subscribers.
You have more than that.
Hi, Cassie Cass. Oh, by the way, CrowdSurf doesn't follow me on Instagram. I'm offended. You better change that.
Is Summer on? Summer runs our Instagram. Summer, make sure you're following Cheryl.
Summer's on and called out.
Summer.
Cheryl, it's hard because we have like projects rotate all the time, you know? But
totally.
like,
no, I get it.
We're down to follow you. We post about you.
I should probably follow you too then.
Yeah. Are you following me? Well, I know you're following me, but
wait, you should be following CrowdSurf because I don't really go on my Instagram. But no one needs to know that.
You know. All right, cool. So let's get started. So we are here today with the fabulous Cheryl Burke, who I have hair envy of, and like a lot of other envies of, but specifically hair envy. And we're going to be talking about AAPI Heritage Month. So Cheryl and we work together. We've known each other about, I guess, like 6 months now, because as you guys know, Cheryl was AJ McLean's partner on Dancing with the Stars. So that's how we got to know each other. And AJ quickly was like, you have to meet person. So he was right. And so it just kind of worked out, and it's been so much fun working with her for the past 6 months. And we are so excited to have her here today. I know this is a subject that she also, like, she lives every day, but she's also passionate about to talk about, and especially right now, really opening her platform to talk about the issues in the AAPI community that have unfortunately been coming up more recently. So I'm going to pass it to Cheryl. Oh, also, don't forget, Justin is here. Justin,
more importantly, I'm here. No, just kidding.
Wow. Have you won 3 trophies on Dancing with the Stars?
No, because I haven't either. It's been 2.
Oh, 2. Sorry.
I have won 2
like back in 1960.
But I always say this. I don't even know if I've said it to you. I was like, the trophies you've won have been with men that I have pinned to my wall. Like, that were pinned to my wall. Like,
how about these trophies? The ones that like fall off, like my mirrors on the mirror ball is completely just done.
It's not a high quality trophy.
No, you can get it on eBay, I'm sure, or wherever. Get it made, you know.
I can't. I think I'd started saying 3 because I was hoping you and AJ were gonna win. Maybe that's
you can manifest it, because I never know. Maybe I go back next season.
Maybe you go back. Maybe you get
maybe
that 3rd
I
one.
don't.
Maybe I'll get like an extra, and like how they give like team members like plaques and stuff. Like maybe I'll get a mirror ball.
And maybe I'll get a hip replacement at the same time, because my hips are killing me.
I'm getting there.
Oh God.
All right. So Cheryl, I'm going to pass over to you if you want to tell us quickly about who you are, where you're from, what you did.
Okay. Well, I'm from Dancing with the Stars, not just from there, right? But it doesn't define me, but it is a big part of my life. I've been a part of Dancing with the Stars for 23 seasons. I'm not that old. We did 2 seasons a year. So we'll rewind even further back. My mother's Filipina, and my real father was, he passed away a couple of years ago. I just found out, actually, 23andMe, that I'm Ashkenazi Jew. So my dad thought he was Russian Irish. He never met his father. So I've just found out some really cool new information, which makes me technically mestiza. So the definition of mestiza is basically like Filipinos mixed with like either Spanish or like European heritage, right? So that's that. And then my mom loved dancing. She still loves dancing. She dances herself. But as a kid, she wasn't able to, because she grew up in a very poor province in the Philippines. Her mother, that I also just found this out after interviewing my mom on my YouTube channel, her mother was a PE instructor. So I never met her because she died when my mother was 16. But she loved dance, but they couldn't afford it. So my mom definitely put her dream and now lives vicariously through me. But thanks God for that, right? Or else I wouldn't be here today. So dance has been more than just the act of dancing. It's been very therapeutic and healing for me. I've been through a lot of trauma as a kid, and it really helped me, I guess, find my voice in in a weird way, because you're using your body and it's all about your body language and movement, and it's very healing. So I'm currently working on a project, putting a dance, I guess you could say, like a dance class, but it's not necessarily a class. It's more like
a therapeutic dance
experience. Thanks, Jade. Yes. You can fill in my sentences. You know me more than I know myself. And it's definitely something that I want to share with everyone, because there's a lot of people are intimidated by talk therapy. I love it, but for me, that's just me, right? A lot of people don't really want to talk about their feelings, which I totally get. So there's other ways of healing. A lot of people turn to animals or whatever it is, but I think we need more awareness around this subject when it comes to mental health. And I'm a huge advocate.
Outlets to have therapeutic practices in your life, you know.
Totally. Exactly. There's so many other options, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get into that, which will be like later in the year, but
yeah, it's a dance program. That's what I was trying to say.
I'm going to learn to dance.
Yes, you are. And I'm going to teach you. And we're going to do it.
I can do this.
It's going to be magical. Yeah. Oh God. Yes. By the way, AJ tried to teach me a little bit of his choreography. For some reason, when it comes to like hip hop, I can't memorize.
Really?
Oh no, I don't even know. Like you can show me 20 times and it won't like process.
So like, I'm sure you could do this, but we kind of ripped part of Backstreet's Back when I was in show choir. And there is a move after this where they spin around and they go on the ground and it's like, this hand's on the floor, this hand's like this, and then your right leg crosses in front of your left leg and you, what?
Well, first of all, this is what I've been asking AJ to do on the show, and all of a sudden he forgot. Like, I'm like, what's going on here, AJ?
I don't know if there's a name for that, but I think it is like the most difficult thing I've ever attempted to do in my life.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
Yeah, they just put me in the back row and I faked it. So,
as long as you drop at the same time, you're good.
Okay. So first I wanted to ask you, with everything going on in the Asian community in America right now, how are you doing?
You know, to say that I'm just doing fine, it would be a lie. It's really, I guess, it has taken my freedom away, my feeling of being able to feel safe, even just like walking my dog. I've told you this, Jay, like, it's really crazy. It's shocking. I'm still in like that shock, just to feel, you know, like I have to constantly look over my shoulder. And when people like may say stuff, you know, it's really, it makes me just want to hide sometimes and isolate. And then having to just always make sure I have a hat on if I don't wear makeup and all of that stuff. It's not a great feeling, you know.
Well, let me ask you with the hat thing, because obviously you're also a celebrity. Are you saying that's something you've more adopted now with the violence going on? Wow.
Yeah, like without makeup on, I do. Wow. I'm Asian American, you know, and so like my mom came to visit me actually when my husband was shooting a movie recently, and my mom and I actually, we got harassed a little bit, and we were just walking my dog here where I live, and it's scary for me because like I always fear that something will happen to my mother, right? Like when I see all these violent attacks on the vulnerable, it reminds me of my mom and my aunts and uncles, and it's just really, it's crazy that we know it's 2021 and this is something that we're still going through.
Yeah. And I think even more like, you know, you live in Los Angeles and Hollywood area. You would think in even like those areas where everything is so much more diverse and there's such a melting pot of people, like, and it's still happening in areas like that, which I think is even kind of more shocking.
Right. And I'm from the Bay Area, right? So my mom used to have a nursing company in Daly City, and that's like the mecca of like where a lot of Filipinos live. You know, a lot of Filipinos are nurses, women, not all, but and that's where a lot of the attacks have happened. And also to hear that, you know, I saw, it was so disturbing, this woman basically being beat down to the ground and people shutting doors, you know, and it's like, it's so disturbing to see how we've been so segregated and divided, and like, where is the love? Like, where is the nurture? And like, we're human beings. We're not robots being programmed to be like mean and cruel. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know if it has anything to do with the leadership that has happened recently, but like, I think a lot of people right now currently are feeling that fight or flight at the moment. And it's like they turn inwards, but not in a good way. They're trying to protect themselves rather than trying and helping the community. And at the end of the day, we're all one. So I don't understand what people are thinking as far as being divided goes.
I'm going to ask you this. It wasn't on the list, but I know you'll be fine to talk about that. I'm just going to ask you, because we had a conversation when you wanted to kind of open up your platform and start talking about these issues, that you really wanted to post the violence instead of hiding it, because to you that was important for people who had not seen it to understand how extreme these cases were. Why was that?
You know, I'm tired of people kind of defending the violence in a way. It's whenever I have these conversations, it's like, well, it didn't happen to you, or we don't know the intention behind. Listen, violence is violence, and until people see it, that it's real, that it didn't happen years ago, people are not going to believe any of it, right? And so, like, because a lot of people who may not, you know, there is white privilege, and there is such a thing, and there's even just privilege. I'm very privileged. You know, there's people. It depends on the situation. Now, certain people may not have been exposed to racism, like maybe their parents weren't racist, and then when you tell these stories, a lot of people are shocked by this, and almost to the point where I become defensive, because I'm just like, but then educate yourself, then do the work, right? So that
no, and I totally agreed with you, and I also thought it was important. And I will say, before, like, we actually started digging for some of that footage, I hadn't seen it, and it did make the situation seem so much more real than just hearing a story, like seeing it, like, you know, the woman who in New York, she was
a Filipino woman going to church. She was minding her own business, and all of a sudden got slammed to the ground.
And it's like she's walking in front of a nice building with a doorman, and they literally shut the door on her, and that was
the door. And not so just him, hard. The person who shut it. It was everyone in the store that saw it too, or the people that were there. And it's like not one and I understand that, you know, fear, right? Like fear sometimes takes over. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not like this guy had a gun, and even if he did, it's like you have to lend a helping hand. Like even the man who got sliced basically from ear to ear on the subway, he was a Filipino man. He said that nobody offered help, not one person. He thought he was going to die. And it's like, it's so sad, because like, really, honestly, it could have been my mom. It could have been my uncle. It could have been anybody. It just happened. And people need to understand that you have to lead with love, and then people will follow. Like people see, you know, we're creatures of habit, right? So it's like we need to be able to not live in fear to where you isolate and like not want to be involved. You know. I do want to have a little bit of hope, right? And I want to see people for like the good, but it's really hard nowadays, right?
Yeah. And it's hard when you're seeing all these things. And I think it's interesting the way you were saying, you know, there are some people that have never seen things like this, or maybe they grew up in a place that was very open, and you know, they were a place that had a lot of different types of people. I think an interesting perspective that I have is, I have lived in both like the South and in Los Angeles. I spent a lot of time in New York and things like that. So I think what's interesting is sometimes, you know, I'll tell a story of something that happened in Nashville, you know, that I've seen or occurred, or something that is very common that happened or is said in the South. And I'll tell it to people that I know in Los Angeles, and they're shocked. And they're like, are you serious? And then like, you know, other Nashville people will be like, yeah, like that's still something that's happening in these, even in a city like Nashville, that's so metropolitan and like has like, you know, grown so much in the past 15 years. There are just some common things that unfortunately are not shocking to see.
And also it's that though, it's like people are so scared to start the conversation, and it's like or to offend anybody, right? So, but it's better to offend than to never bring it up. If you have questions, ask the questions, and talk to somebody that you trust, and that it's okay to say, look, I don't mean to offend you, but I'm actually curious. Like we have to stay curious, and we have to continue to educate.
Yeah. I think one of the things we had talked about was, or going back to the thing I was saying, somebody was like, oh, are like Confederate flags really still a thing? I was like, oh yeah. Like if I had to go outside and find 10 in the next 20 minutes, I could. I know
Totally
where they are. And it was,
yes.
and they were like, wow, I've never even like seen one of those in, you know, in public and not on like the internet or something like that. So yeah, like the whole world is different from America, but even in America, like there are
That's
some,
the thing.
there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going
But
on.
it's
And
like
it's,
we're the United States of America, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that we feel like foreigners in our own country is insane. You know,
Insane.
my mom, you know, had the privilege of taking me with her to the Philippines, and it's unfortunate that like we're so branded by like your grades at school, your SAT scores. I don't even know if SATs still happen, but like at the end of the day, it's really, I'm grateful that in a way I wasn't very good in school. Like I just sat in the back of the class, bad eyes, couldn't see anything, and I just wanted to like go to dance the whole time. But because of ballroom dance, it gave me the privilege to travel around the world, and I think that is really the best education, is when you see it firsthand.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that access to traveling, you know, if you want to, you could actually just go onto YouTube and just research, and it's as if you're there. And if you even just put AAPI Heritage Month 2021, you'll see so much information that is very, it's short and sweet, but it's like, it educates you. You learn so much.
So also, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, what does AAPI stand for?
Asian American Pacific Islander.
Can you talk a little more into like that definition?
So it's a whole wide, like,
because I think if people don't know what like the Pacific Islander part of it means, like people keep saying AAPI, and I'm sure everyone doesn't know exactly what that means.
No. Exactly. Okay, so Asian American, there's so many different types of Asians, right? You've got Japanese, you've got Korean, you've got Vietnamese, you've got Chinese, and then you've got Pacific Islander. So actually, up until recently, I thought I was Pacific Islander, but technically, as I mentioned earlier, I'm mestiza, right? So because I'm mixed, and my mother would be considered more Asian. She's first generation, right? So she's first generation Filipina, and then Pacific Islander would be more like Samoan, Tongan, Polynesian, you know, that. And if you're born in Hawaii, you know, that's more Pacific Islander. Mestiza, mestizo. If you're a man, you're mestizo. If you're a woman, mestiza. And that's mixed with like Spanish and Filipino, or European and Filipino. So yeah, it's just a wide range, right? And you've got people from who's like Indian, you know, they're considered Asian American. You know,
like people from India.
Yes.
Yeah. Because India is part of Asia.
Yes, which also is something new that I never knew as well. You know, it's just, but it's so easy to find. It's just, you know, they say when you are Googling yourself or anybody or like a certain thing, you have this whole like formula on your phone, right? So like you could actually, if you want to know a lot about, let's say, a certain culture or heritage or whatever it is, you just need to Google it, and then you'll have pop-ups come up. Like your phone will memorize what you are interested in, and it will show you, you know.
That's awesome. Justin, do you want to jump in? I don't want to like talk over you forever because I know I can do that. So feel free.
Okay. No, well, you know, I think after talking about, you know, what AAPI stands for and, you know, the importance of this month, I feel like given everything that's going on, this is just a very different year than usual, obviously not necessarily in great ways. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Like how is this this month different than previous years?
I mean, for instance, like, you know, the fact that we have now united even just like the Asian American Pacific Islander community in the Hollywood business, right? Like it's so it's really nice to see other sides of people, right? So like it humanizes everyone, right? So a lot of people have been talking about, you know, just how this affects them personally, and to hear, it's always great to talk about your own story. And this is what I want to encourage with everybody, because you only have your own experience and your own story. And I think at the end of the day, when people get turned off, it's when you try and school people about like statistics and facts. I think it's so important that you talk about your own story, because then you become relatable. And people don't feel like they're alone. And that's how I've been feeling like as soon as like Olivia Munn opened up her life and she's now is a huge advocate for AAPI, and even, you know, Lisa Ling, and like you just like, I've met so many people. I did a CBS panelist show back in, what was it, last month, and it was so fascinating to be with this group of people who I've never met but who I've known just from watching them on television, and to really bond with them and talk about, you know, sometimes our deepest, darkest secrets that we're ashamed of, or we feel shame of. We feel like we have a lot of shame behind it. And it's so important that that we have these uncomfortable conversations, because it really, right away, it makes you become vulnerable, which is not a bad thing at all. And this is what has been hard for me, is my mother taught me not to be vulnerable, right? And vulnerability was a sign of weakness, but it really is the opposite. It takes so much courage to be vulnerable and to basically talk about your story, because we always fear that we're going to get judged. And then with judged, then comes shame. And at the end of the day, you have to be proud of who you are, because there's only one of you, you know, there's only one unique you.
100%. I love that. I just love the way you said it. I was thinking about it.
Are you crying?
Yeah. So I'm going to skip down a little bit, because I want to get into this, and I think it's important, and I think it's something people want to talk about. How do you think social media can help contribute to the solution of these issues that we're seeing?
Well, like for instance, it has definitely contributed using my platform.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many followers you have.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have one follower, like that person is obviously following you for a reason, you know? And so it's very important that we take responsibility over what we post. I think it's so easy to repost maybe content that is not necessarily accurate, especially when people repost stuff about AAPI, like you're maybe reposting some statistic that is no longer relevant, right? So do the research and make sure that what you're posting, you're mindful of, because it's so easy just to repost, right? And at the end of the day, maybe the person following you looks up to you, and like you just, it's about community. And social media nowadays, like you don't need to hire a publicist. You're your own publicist, you're your own voice. And this gives us freedom, which sometimes I think is maybe too much freedom, but we can actually turn that around and understand that it's not about the number of followers. You are an influencer regardless. If you've got one follower, it's very important what you say and how you say it.
So, you know, I know that we've talked about how you decided that this was something you really wanted to open up your platform to talking about.
And I lost a lot of followers, but that's fine.
Yeah. You know, and we've talked about that. And you know, you would say,
I still do,
should I, you know, then, you know, like any human, should I not? Am I, you know, and it's like, you know, and I told you, I said, a lot of people that are posting about things like this are losing followers, which is unfortunate. But it also shows that what you're doing is making people.
But then I don't want those people following me anyway. Then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like at the end of the day, fine, unfollow me. But yes, I did feel very insecure, and I did call you, Jade, because I was just like, I'm losing like 5,000 at a time, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and I've been stuck at a number for so long, and I'd rather be, for me, if I'm not invested, if I don't feel like I have a purpose, then for me, it's kind of that's when I get depressed, right? So it's like I finally feel alive, being able to use my voice and not being too affected by these people who decide to unfollow me. It was one conversation with you, and that was it. Like, done.
Well, it's like Instagram's like your digital home, you know, and it's like if people were in your home, you know, you being an Asian American, and they literally don't want to hear about that.
Well, people are saying that
house.
They're saying I'm privileged. Like, what do you have to worry about? And so at the end of the day, you guys, you don't know my story. You don't know me. You really don't. You know a version of me. And I try and be as open and honest and as authentic as possible. But there's only so much you can do when you're posting, right? Like and at the end of the day, I think it's important that people, again, stop being ignorant, you know, like really educate yourself, or want to, or don't want to. That's fine. But then don't comment.
Yeah. So that being said, we've never talked about this, but were there times in the past that you maybe hid your heritage,
All the
or
time.
what are some of those examples?
Okay, so my mom was working 7 days a week, 24/7. She just started her company, and my mom and dad, my real dad, when they were still married, hired a nanny for me from the Philippines, and she
Mhm.
became like my mom. You know, she was like my second
Mhm.
mom.
Yeah.
So she only spoke Tagalog, which is the Filipino language, and I
Mhm.
only spoke English. And so we had like two languages being spoken at home, and uh, she would only cook Filipino food. And she was definitely somebody that I loved so much. She died of cancer when I was 13.
Mhm.
But yet at the same time, I hid her from my friends because
Mhm.
every time I would, like, she'd come pick me up at the bus stop, I'd be made fun of because, oh, who's that? Where is she from? Or I would get, oh, you smell like dog. You know, people make these stereotypes that like Filipinos eat dog. Um, and it was really hard for me to stick up for myself because like I said, I'm an introvert, and I took it to heart. Like, it was traumatizing. You know,
Yeah.
I'd get made fun of, you know, people would run by me and like pull their eyes back. And at the end of the day, you know, it's so important for people who have kids. You know, it's vital that you lead with love, and they, you know, as kids, very observant, you know, and so it's very
Mhm.
important that whatever is happening, you know, it's like it's so important not to, I guess, not to be mindless. Like, you have to be so mindful of what you're saying, and also
Yeah.
yet still have the courage. Like, a lot of people say to me, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from the Bay Area. And they're like, no, where are you really from? And I'm like, I'm really from the Bay
The Bay
Area.
Area.
So it's like, but what do you want to say? You know, learn how to say it. What is
Yeah.
it? What's your ethnicity? Where's your parents from? You know, like, but where are you really from? Like, we have to be careful with our words.
Yeah. Was there any time during your professional career that you kind of downplayed your ethnicity or
Always.
anything? Mm.
Still have this insecurity, um, you know, with my eyes. It's like, don't put makeup on my eyes that make my eyes look Asian. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it literally was, I feel bad for all the makeup artists on Dancing with the Stars, actually, especially the first few years. Now I'm totally embracing it, and I'm so proud to be,
Yeah.
you know, Filipina. But like, I would make them do like contour on my shadow so my eyes would
Wow.
open. I'd use certain lashes so that my eyes weren't so, you know, small. So
Why do you think
yeah,
that was?
because there was shame behind it, and I
Mm.
felt like, you know, look, this is no secret. I feel like the reason why I was cast on Dancing with the Stars was because I do look different. You know,
Mhm.
I am Asian American, and there's not one other girl to this day who represents the AAPI community. A lot of it has to do, I think, with the fact that you know, ABC has done such a great job with keeping their cast diverse, but there is also a little bit of shame when it comes to like certain jobs that maybe I didn't get, but they chose somebody who was white, you know? And so it's crazy because even though we're not trying to be racist, or we can say, you know, we're not racist, but I think society as a whole, I think that there's tendencies to be racist without even knowing you're being racist, right?
Mhm.
Like, there is, people do judge you by the color of your skin. And my mom would always say that, like, this is why she never laid out in the sun, because like, if the whiter she was, the more opportunity she got.
Wow.
My mom's real last name is Bautista. My mom still has Burke because she didn't want to be judged for being Bautista, you know?
And how often do you, which, you know, unfortunately, I assume this does still happen, but do you experience microaggressions, specifically in the entertainment industry? Is that something that you experience often?
I mean, yes and no. You know, it's like, it's hard because, like, look, you don't really ever know what's behind all of that,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, i I don't want to be the person to be like, well, you know, it's because of the color of my skin. I hope it's not like that. I try to look at the positive, but I can't help but think, yes, absolutely, like, it's certain opportunities have definitely not come my way because of the way I look. Absolutely, for sure. And same skill, right? Same skill set with
Right.
the other
Mhm.
person. if not more, right? I was more experienced. There was no reason for it other than what I can say here. So.
Right.
So you mentioned, you know, kind of filling a role in Dancing with the Stars, you know, being Asian American, and, you know, they wanted to have a diverse cast. That can also be looked at obviously as a positive. But
Absolutely, 100%. It is totally.
I mean, obviously it is pretty apparent that we've seen changes start to happen across the board with all kind of races. What are the changes you've seen in the past year or beyond that, or I guess before that, that you think are genuine that have been made?
Yeah. Well, I think that people are becoming more curious, and I think that people are definitely more outspoken, especially in the Asian culture. You know, we are taught, and I've been taught, I can't speak for everybody, but to keep our head down, stay humble, but not necessarily in a good way, right? Turn inwards, but like not in the way where it's healthy for you. It's more like don't cause problems, right? Just don't cause problems. And I think with this generation, with my generation, we're about to cause problems. You know what I mean? Like we're about to at least be able to use our voice, because nothing's going to stop us, right? Like we are just as American as you are, you know, at the end of the day. Like this is our home just as much as it's your home.
At the end of the day, all of us are immigrants unless we're Native American.
Right.
There's that too.
Like, full-blooded. Everyone needs to do a 23andMe test.
Right.
But yeah, I think also just, I think being able to, as women especially, like there's a lot of stereotypes, right? Like Asian women are only good for one thing. We're like sex objects, or you could definitely win a fight or win a battle with an Asian man because he's not going to do anything anyway. And we only like to eat rice, and we, you know, there's all these crazy stereotypes that like that need to stop, because not all Asians are bad drivers, for instance. Like that's not the case. And and it's just like people, I think in the past were able to, like even comedians were able to get away with like saying stuff like this.
Actually, I wanted to specifically talk about comedy with you. Did you see like the story that came out today?
No.
There was, I don't know the names of the people, but there was an Asian American man that was opening for a white comedian, and I don't know where it was. Anyways, he, you know, the Asian American man, he did his you know, skit, his show, his whatever. And he was there to introduce and, you know, kind of like an opening act they do in comedy. And I bring this up before I go on, because this is a conversation, like, especially me and Cassie have a lot on what is the line with comedy. And, you know, I worked in comedy before I worked in music, actually, because that was the job at the record label that was open. And it was interesting because, I mean, one, this was almost 20 years ago. I was way less woke. And there's part of it that's like, oh, because you hear it and it's like normalized and it's mainstream, it's funny. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, when I think of the things and the jokes that I heard and the stereotypes I saw on things like The Simpsons or whatever, like on TV.
No, listen, I did it too, just to cut the crap.
Yeah.
Like I would just make fun of myself to the point where it was like, it was no longer self-deprecating. It was like offensive to myself. But because I know people wanted to do it, right? Like, especially in this entertainment business, like I hang out with people who are high profile comedians. And at the end of the day, this is how they got a laugh, you know? So everyone. And
so I guess my question to you, so in this situation that just happened, this other, like the headlining comedian gets on stage and just rips this guy for being Asian. And like, it was one of these things, and the discussion was, was this comedy or was this like hate speech? You know what I'm saying? And I've had this conversation a lot in the past few years, like, where is the line? And is it okay? Like, and another thing, for instance, like I've watched this show on Netflix, The Kim's Convenience Store. Is it wrong that I'm watching that? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I would just love to know. It's about an Asian American family that lives in Toronto and runs a convenience store, and it's full of stereotypes. I mean, all the main characters are Asian American, or maybe Asian Canadian, I guess. But again, like I watched it, but there were parts of me, because I watched it in the past year during the pandemic, that I was like, am I supposed to find this funny? Should I not watch this? They're creating it. Right. As a white person, I'm asking you, where do you think the line lies?
I mean, look, it just depends on the person. And at the end of the day, like, let's say Chelsea Handler were to go out and let's say do exactly the same thing that whatever you saw, right? I think you have to kind of edit certain things depending on the time we're living in. I think right now it's a little too sensitive at this moment. I mean, you have to go with your gut. Listen, I know comedians like to be risk takers, and I know that, you know, this is what they do, and everyone needs to like not take it so seriously. But like right this second is probably not a good time.
Yeah, true. Are there any?
And as far as watching it, I don't think there's any harm in watching it. But then you have to be mindful of your emotions and your reactions, and you have to ask questions.
Yeah, I agree. Are there any particular like stereotypes in entertainment that you've seen throughout your life that are like particularly bothersome to you?
Well, like, okay, well, Carrie Ann, I remember her doing like dressing up in Austin Powers, I think it was, when she was fuck you, fuck me, or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like stuff like that. Like, look, I could have a laugh, you know, and if anybody, you know, found it funny, it was me, you know, and also, but then you start to hear other people's stories, and that's when you start to develop these emotions. Like, that's actually not funny. Like, look at how much it affects people, you know, and like, just because I can detach is not necessarily the way to go. Right. And really, every time I did that, I probably lost a little bit of respect for myself. So at the end of the day, until you have these conversations and you see other people's reactions and have an open mind and realize that that one comment can affect this person for years, it could be traumatizing. Maybe it's not so funny, you know?
Yeah. I really like how you said if you would laugh at that, you would like lose a little respect for yourself. I mean, I don't like that, but it's
100%.
I think it's a brilliant introspective look at that.
Who am I? Right? Like, I'm like, I am Asian American Pacific Islander. What am I doing? Like, I'm laughing at my whole family. Really?
Well, and something else in that specific situation, I think, you know, knowing the scene and like, you know, it's like two girls in this club and whatever, I think it can bring up the subject of like sex trafficking and like these girls that are hanging on to these like rich white men. You know,
my real father owned strip clubs in Thailand. Okay. And he's no longer alive. He passed away 2 years ago. And my dad was a very successful lawyer in the Bay Area, and then followed his passion. And I won't say the P word, but that's what it was. And loved Asian women. And he always told me he loved Asian women because they never talked back. They just did whatever he wanted, you know. And this is where it was really hard for me to have closure with my father, because I was never able to discuss with him. Like, he was very much a narcissist, right? My mother has now remarried a beautiful man who I call my dad, but he's my stepdad. But anyway, back to my father. And it was really hard to, I guess, have these conversations, because he was the typical narcissist who, and who thought that every Asian woman was the same. And then he would always say, except this is why I divorced your mother, because all of a sudden my mom spoke English. My mom is very opinionated. She's such a badass. I love her to death. And she was never going to accept any of it, you know, like, to make such stereotypical, like, it was really, I guess it was uncomfortable for me to be around my father, you know. And if he were alive and living here, I mean, it wouldn't go down well, you know, at all. And
so your father was, but he was not Asian. He was, now you're saying
he was
Jewish.
He's Ashkenazi Jewish. Yeah.
Right. But so what was the story of him owning strip clubs in Thailand? Did he moved there and became an entrepreneur?
Whole strip clubs, basically. And he loved Asian women and Thai women, and and I would still go there. My mom, you know, made sure that I still developed a relationship with my dad and never talked bad about my father. And so, like, even me, my stepdad, and my mom would go and visit my father once a year in Thailand.
Wow.
And I saw a whole nother world out there. Like, all the women in this city, Pattaya, they were basically 16 years old. And you would see like older white men, you know, they're probably leaving their wives, or just like going on a business trip and hooking up with these underage prostitutes. And there's the stigma behind it, until you see it, you know, it's so sad, because these young girls are just like, you could tell they're hurting and they're in so much pain, and to be used like sex objects. And look, it is a choice, absolutely, but at the end of the day, it's almost like this stereotype has now fallen in, and that's what they should be doing. Like, there's no way of like getting out, in a way. And so it's been it's really hard to hear, like, when that man went into this massage parlor and shot eight, it's just, it hit home in a way. It was really hard. I don't even know why I just shared that with you, because you were talking about
it's like thank you for sharing. That's incredibly open, and this is me knowing you and like being a marketing person. I'm like, are you writing a book? Because I feel like there's so much.
I've written a book, but like, if I just wrote a book about my dad though, and the life, like, I'm telling you, I think I've lived like a cat, like however many lives that they have. But like, I seriously have experienced so much, and I would love to write a book, but then I'd probably have to like leave the country. Just kidding.
But it's like, you've actually said that sentence to me before, and maybe you've said it publicly, that your father owned these strip clubs.
Yes.
But like, going deeper into it, it's like, I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, you're such a like put together, successful woman who, you know, I think has so much confidence, and, you know, you're an entrepreneur and you're a public speaker and you're a champion dancer. And like, in spite of almost the fact that this was your, you know, your lineage, or whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah. And on the surface, it looks like that, right? But I could be the first to tell you that I've been in therapy since I was a little girl, and every day now I'm also sober. And, you know, I'm like any other human being who goes through a lot of insecurities and doubts. And I don't think necessarily that this business is healthy for me. But I'm a hustler, and I get that from my mother. And I'll, you know, if I have to do something I may feel uncomfortable doing, then I do it. But that's not necessarily good for my mental health, which is why I'm such an advocate, because you only see an edited version of me on Dancing with the Stars. They don't feature us, right? So at the end of the day, we're there, and I love being of service, and I love being able to give back to my celebrity, and I love changing people's lives. But I've realized, especially in the recent years, I need to turn inwards and work on my own mental health. Sometimes you can give, and then you forget about yourself. And how much more can you give if you don't take care of your own mental health?
100%. You know, I think we should also mention, you do have your own podcast, Pretty Messed Up, with AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys and legendary video producer Renee Elizondo Jr. And that's really the subject that you guys talk about is mental health, and also sobriety. And again, it's like, it's amazing that you're so vulnerable to talk about that. And I know you say, and with me too, I'm like, there's so much, I'm a shit show is how I think of myself. And then people say, oh, you're so together and you blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I cry at night.
That's what you do. You look like,
but I think I think there's a lot of similarities in some of those feelings that you have. So I feel like I understand it in a way, but still, I mean, we still get out of bed and we put ourselves together, and we face the world, and we help people, and we do things, and we speak, and we're vulnerable. And so what I'm saying to you is, even though everything's not going to be perfect for anyone ever, and we're all going to need to go to therapy, I think people should go to therapy forever, because it's amazing.
Oh, every single person should go to therapy or go to jail.
But like, you still have something figured out to where you are leading a life that is giving back. You're beginning to love yourself more. You have done successful things. Like I'm giving you props here.
Thank you. You know what I realized though? It's so easy to stay in bed. It's so easy to be depressed. It's so easy to live in your own thoughts, right? To really live in your own reality. That's not the reality. Like, you know, I've realized this, that just recently, after like learning and educating myself and taking online courses about like the fact that we're just not our thoughts, like that doesn't define us, right? Like, we need to separate from that, and we need to, even if you don't feel like it, you have to get out of bed, because that's the first step. Because like, when you're of service, then you feel like you have a purpose in life. There's so many people that are like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? I haven't found my dream job. What does that mean? Like, at the end of the day, what is the common thread? Like, whenever you notice this, and be mindful of the next person you help with anything, and notice how you feel about yourself. And it's something that's, I can't even explain in words, but it's like, you hit that flow state, right? You hit that, you're like, oh, wow. Like, you feel like all stress is lifted up off your shoulders, and you just want to help more and help. And that's what life is about, right? So when you see someone getting beaten down in the streets of New York, lend a helping hand, for God's sakes.
100%. And I was gonna say this earlier, and you were talking about it, and you had said, like, when these situations happen, like, yes, there's also a fear of violence and all these things, but like, I think what's been shocking mostly is, even you see in some of these videos that I've helped you find, people don't help afterwards. And it's
and a lot of people just post because they want the, like, oh, you're a good American. But like, do you really feel like this? Like, do you even know what you're posting? Do you even know what you're reposting? Or do you just want to look good on the outer part of it? But people can see right through it, so just be genuine, whatever that is. And don't be shamed. Don't feel ashamed for an opinion you may have, or a question that you want to ask. I think it's so important. We all have voices, and you should use it.
100%. So wrapping up, I do want to ask you, and this is a big loaded question, what can people do to be part of the solution? And I think too, I wanted to share, I don't know if you have these like readily available to you on your phone or anything, but like, what are some resources people could even like follow? Like, I think just to start off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, first of all, like, I have a lot of people that I follow just recently, and let me look at my phone, but so I can tell you exactly what it is. I can't even find my phone right now, so we'll not do that.
Do you want me to call you?
No. It's here somewhere. Wait, where is it? Sorry, guys. But like, honestly, before we get there, I guess I could just say to use your voice, like, continue to have these conversations, and continue to be curious, because that's where it all starts, right? Like, you have to stay curious. You have to want to know. I wish I was curious when I was in school. I wish that, this was being taught in schools. I think that is what's missing: mental health and culture. Like, we need to know the history, and not just the history that's one-sided about, Americans, or whatever you define as Americans, but we need to know all cultures. Like, we need to have our kids, the next generation, the next however many generations, they have to, not have to get on a plane to figure it out themselves. Like, we need to have open conversations about this and learn about it. And then AAPI podcasts, you could listen in, and that helps. I mean, Brene Brown, it may not be directly about AAPI, but she is very curious, and she's someone I look up to because she asks some brilliant questions. And what else is there? There's Joe Coy, even him, because, he's a comedian, he's Filipino American, and he only jokes about Filipino related, stuff. And it's actually, for me, it's quite funny, but like, it just brings people together, because like, in a way, when he does it, right, and he's making fun of his mother, it's like, oh, okay, well then, if everyone's in on it, it's another way of doing it, but like, if you have nobody that you're related to that is of the AAPI community, and you joke about it, that's when it gets sensitive, I think. But even when you learn so much about the Filipino culture just listening to Joe Coy make fun of himself.
Cassie said she loves Joe Coy.
Yeah, he was just on our podcast, actually. It was great.
So I'm actually going to open this up.
I can't find my phone.
It's fine. Wait, well, if you want to send me some, Nikki always will post about any resources.
Look, you can also, like, for people that want to donate, you can go to GoFundMe.com, Stop Asian Hate. There's a lot of, you can go on my Instagram. I'm not sure if I still have it in my bio, but there was a link there that you could go to that would help as well. If you don't
just
wanna,
like search Stop Asian Hate, and that's an organization.
And honestly, like, it's all about telling your story, because like, it humanizes you. It's not necessarily about going out there and, whatever, but like, you don't need to put yourself in that situation. You can help in other ways by helping yourself first.
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to bring everybody on screen in case anybody has a question. We did start a little late, so I'm going to let it go for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Fine.
I'm scratching my new tattoo, and that is a no-no, but I was like subconsciously doing it. I'm like, why am I scratching?
Oh no.
Okay. But Nikki's gonna bring everyone on screen. I got my nephew's name. I got my nephew's name, so.
I'm so scared
I don't know.
of
I was just
needles.
like subconsciously, like it was a bug bite, and I was like, oh, that's what.
I did that too, Jade. It's the worst.
Oh, I can't believe I just did that.
Hate
Nice to
needles.
see it.
Hi, Oh, Amber. I know Amber. She's on my. Hey, Amber. Hey, girl.
So while we're bringing everyone, okay, so Cheryl's Cassie's mom, and she works for us. And I don't know how many times I've texted her weird things that I meant to text you.
Oh. Yes, I think I caught you doing that one. I was like, what?
I was like, oh, no, never mind. While we're doing this, I'm going to pimp the Cheryl Burke mask line that apparently is wrapping up, but they're amazing. Like, I'm not paid to do this. I love these masks so much. She sent me some. I bought some myself. The Cheryl Burke Bailey Blue mask line. They are made of this material that's like scuba wear, like scuba gear or whatever. And so it has this seam right here, and you see it stays sticking out. So you have like room to breathe.
It's like a boob cup.
It is. It could totally. And it has little adjusters for your, to make it for your ears. It has also the whatever it is, like the metal in here, very flexible and like fishing wire. Yeah. I wash mine. I've probably washed this one at least 50 times because every time I wear it, I wash it, and this is my favorite one, and it's fine. It's like brand new. My friend even spilled coffee all over it, and I still wash it.
If you have the black lining, you don't even have to wash it because you can't see anything.
Well, I just wash them because like I'm a germ freak.
Same.
We have snakes. Anyways, I like this is one of those products that like I feel the need to tell everyone about because it's actually the best fucking mask out there. I'm telling you guys.
Thanks, Jade. I love you.
I love them.
Wait, a lot of these. I've definitely like emailed at least 5 people here before, so it's good to put a face to your guys' name.
So we're gonna open it up. If somebody has a question, you can raise your hand. I don't know. Nikki, can you control this?
Yeah. I'm looking. Don't worry.
I don't know.
Everyone has the power to unmute themselves. So if you have a question,
that's great. Just
unmute yourself and we'll go from there.
Ask me anything. It doesn't even have to be AAPI related. Don't worry. Well, not anything, but I'm kidding. I'll let you know.
I have a question.
Okay. Hey, Summer.
I'm not part of the Asian American community, but I do find this, I guess my question, like of interest, and I can see where it could apply to like a lot of people. Yeah. How do you suggest people of the community address like microaggressions or just like certain inappropriate language or topics or stuff like that within their own social groups? Whereas maybe before they'd maybe not taken offense to it or just kind of laughed it off. Like how do they approach that healthily with their group of friends if maybe things have changed now?
Well, I mean, I was just as much as at fault as I've said earlier. Like I would be the one just to do it, just to get out of the way. So like I would just kill it altogether by just making an Asian joke or whatever it is. But really, you're giving permission to have other people do that if you are being self-deprecating or being the person who says the joke first. You got to lead and lead with the way you want to be treated, right? You had to set boundaries. And if somebody, and it's so hard nowadays, I can't even imagine being a teenager right now and having to go to school. And, this is where a lot of this started. Like my little sister, she got asked to prom by 2 boys that dressed like rice pickers. Or rice farmers, and literally asked her to prom. And like, I asked her because she did our podcast and we were talking about AAPI, and I asked her, I was like, so how did that make you feel? She goes, I was in on the joke. Like I laughed, but then I went to the bathroom and cried. And I'm like, that's so crazy. And that's the type of stuff that will stay with you forever. And I think we all have stories like this, whether it be, race related or whatever it is. And I think being in that age group is really hard. So I think you just need to be upset. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to react. I don't think people will understand until someone sees someone hurting their feelings. Like, I think it's like people just play it off and they think crying is a sign of weakness, but whether it's crying or just, not reacting. Like you just can't react if you don't feel comfortable showing emotion, or pulling that person aside and be like, that's not funny. It's just not, it's not okay. Look, I get it. I was the person who would just not say anything. I never used my voice, which is now I can't shut up. But you want to be able to, first of all, not feel shame. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I guess I don't really have an answer for it other than, be proud of who you are and stay away from those types of people.
Right.
It's hard though, because you're just
it
like,
is hard, it's like,
especially
it's like,
in that age.
It's going to take a lot of it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to not laughing along is the easy thing to do sometimes.
And making fun of people is the easiest thing to do. Bullying is the easiest thing.
Yeah.
Because you get a laugh, right? Everyone gets a laugh. But what if people stop laughing when you do it? It's not going to be so funny, Yeah.
I love that I don't know. I think that should be a thing. Stop laughing. I think that's a
let's do it. We'll
I think that's just a poignant statement that sums up a lot of things.
Stop. And also I think it's important to not react, but respond. So take a breath before you react. I think
somebody taking notes so we can use this for Cheryl's.
This is all
brand.
This is all my therapy session. So I'm just relaying the message really. But
no, and I love that. I love both those things. Somebody on our team write it down.
That'll be my new bio. It's important though, because how many, for me, and I had to learn this being newly married, I react sometimes, and my feelings and my, that feeling you have where you just need to say it.
Yeah.
That's me. And my husband's really good at responding, and he takes a breath and he's very calm. And look, it's important. Any word that comes out of your mouth is either gonna, hopefully inspire. And I tend to react, and it's so interesting. It's the people that don't react, that don't have a lot to say, are the ones that are the wise ones, right? So
I love
not
that.
so wise yet, but I'm learning.
I think we definitely have time for one or two more questions if anybody has one.
I have a question. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
You're literally one of
Hi,
my
Marissa.
favorite people in the entire world.
Oh, thank you.
How does it feel to be a role model for people like me?
Oh, I love you. Oh, Marissa, I love you so much. Thank you for your sweet words, and thank you for sharing that.
So how does it
with me.
feel to be a role model for people like me?
It's the reason why I am here today. It literally helps when I feel down myself, and it helps me get out of my bed and want to show up, and it makes me feel like I have a purpose. And thank you so much for letting me know, because sometimes you don't know, you just don't know, and sometimes I even question myself, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing here? And when I hear from people like you, Marissa, it really brightens my day. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? One more question. Everyone's shy today.
I know. Don't be shy.
My mom, I could force my mom to ask a
Jade,
question.
do you have a question, Jade?
Do I have a question? I just asked you 50 questions.
I know. What's one thing that you want to know about me that you don't know? Is it appropriate?
What's one thing I want to know about Cheryl that I don't know? I can ask you anything.
You're I could just Google it.
I could just ask you or Google it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know some dirt.
Uh-oh.
Not on AJ, I know him well enough. On Drew Lachey when he was your partner.
God, that was back in 1942.
I know.
What do you want to know? You got to be specific. Okay.
It's just somebody else that I know that you know. So that's what I asked. Was he a little bitch in rehearsal?
No, actually, the whole family, they're really good, solid people.
No, they're
right?
great
They're
people.
Cincinnati. Yeah.
They are. Like
that
one
was-
time,
when I danced with him, that was the whole Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson drama when they
oh, was
just
that
divorced.
the same time?
Yeah. So it was crazy, right? Like we would all go out and
Yeah.
it was like I was with like President Obama or something. Like it was so, and this was my first season, so I was shocked, still shocked.
Because this is actually a really good story.
Yeah, right. And I can go
That's
deeper,
great.
but we'll talk later.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've toured with them a few times, so
They're good guys, though.
know them well. One time I was like, this is how good they are. Like one time I was on a tour with another artist and Nick knew I was coming through Cincinnati because he looked at the tour dates and came and picked me up, took me to his house, let me wash my clothes, let me shower,
Yeah.
and made me breakfast.
That's so
Like
sweet.
that's how they are. They're like the nicest
Yeah.
people ever.
Very, very attainable, like relatable dudes. Yeah, totally.
Totally cool. Totally cool. All right. Well, if you guys have any more questions, you can just let me know and I can, you know,
You can DM
call
me.
Cheryl.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you, Cheryl. I really appreciate you
Thank
doing
you.
this. And I really appreciate
Thank
you
you,
being
guys.
so vulnerable. And I'm excited because I'm going to cut some of this for your social media. I mean, Maria. I mean, not Maria. Who's going to do it? Who's working on this project now? We're changing
Summer.
teams. Yeah, Summer and Karen. Summer and Karen. Yep.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for
Thanks,
having me.
Cheryl.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys. Bye.